We love Classical Conversations.
Your organization is known worldwide, and we certainly appreciate every facet that you do.
I do believe in what you're doing because I've seen it in my family.
I'm so excited about all the things that, Robert, you guys do with Classical Conversations. It's been a huge blessing for our family.
Grateful for the work at Classical Conversations. You're a leader, and you have been in this movement for a long time.
I do feel like I have a debt of gratitude to you, your family, all of CC for just the fruit that has come from CC.
Appreciate all that you guys do, both through this wonderful podcast and also through Classical Conversations, which I am convinced is the best education resource out there. Thank you very much for all that you do for the cause of Christ and for our families and for our children. Really, really appreciate it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Refining Rhetoric. Today, my guest is Ed Corrigan, President and CEO of the Conservative Partnership Institute. He holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Massachusetts Amherst and has spent over 25 years in leadership roles on Capitol Hill and in the conservative movement. He was named GQ's magazine's 50 most powerful people in D.C. Not quite as good as 50 best looking people in D.C., but I'm sure he'll take it. And he worked under Senators Jim DeMint, Jeff Sessions, and Mike Lee, three of the good ones up in D.C., as executive director of the Senate Steering Committee. And he was later tapped to lead the Trump transition personnel selection process for all domestic policy departments. And he now sits on the board of the Leadership Institute and works with the Conservative Action Project, continuing his mission to build and unite conservative leaders across Washington and the nation. And I know we have many of those future leaders listening in today that are a part of Classical Conversations. So without further ado, Ed, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I know that there's all sorts of different sorts of institutions and think tanks up in D.C. for the conservative side, and the Conservative Partnership Institute has been described as an incubator and activist hub. So what does that mean?
So, yeah, the reason we started the Conservative Partnership Institute, and it was about 8 years ago, was that there are a lot of wonderful organizations and people doing great work in the movement. And what we wanted to do is come alongside them and just to be a support structure, provide resources, training, staffing, and those kind of things to make sure that they are able to accomplish their missions, not trying to duplicate anything that currently exists, but mostly just trying to be a support.
Yeah, so I know, in the past, kind of conservatives have been upset that we get people elected and then they seem to have no plan. It seems that this Trump administration has been a little bit different. They hit the ground running, about 100 executive orders or so that first week. Yeah. What work has gone into preparing for this new administration? And just kind of maybe give us behind the scenes of why this administration seems to be accomplishing so much more than previous ones.
Yeah, so I was heavily involved in the 2016 transition, even spent a couple of months up in Trump Tower during that period of time working on personnel selection. And it was, very exciting time. Trump had just been elected. And so we were trying to make sure that he got staffed up with the right people. And it was still very early on in that MAGA movement, and it was a lot of the details and the definition to what Trumpism and the Trump doctrine was still being fleshed out. And so, and the other thing is you didn't really have that deep bench of personnel to pull from. President Obama had been president for 8 years. Before that, you had President Bush. And so there really wasn't a cadre of people to put in that were experienced hands who were dedicated to that Trump philosophy. And so it was challenging. But then we had an opportunity. You had four years of the Biden administration. And so in 2024, I think there was a lot of real opportunity. There was a much clearer sense of what President Trump's vision was for the country. And of course, a deeper bench of people who had either served in the previous term, who had been on Capitol Hill. A lot of people come to D.C. because of President Trump. And so you had a much more robust list of people to choose from. And I think he's been able to hit the ground running in this second term because of that.
Mm. That's great. And one of the things that, I've always been a champion of the Freedom Caucus. Dan Bishop was my congressman at the federal level, but you guys started State Freedom Caucus Network. I know Andy Roth. I've met him a few times and have talked to him. And you guys have the Election Integrity Network, which just because you win an election doesn't mean there's still not flaws that need to be fixed. And of course, the Conservative Partnership Academy. So what are these three institutes doing, and how do they fit in kind of with the conservative strategy up in DC and across this nation?
Right. One of the missions that we really started getting into in earnest right after the 2020 elections was we had a lot of creative people who really wanted to contribute to the movement. Some had served in the Trump administration. People like Stephen Miller and Russ Vogt came out, said, "Hey, I want to start a new group." Stephen started America First Legal. Russ started the Center for Renewing America, MAGA think tank. Stephen's group was more litigation. And then we were talking with Andy Roth and Justin Ouimet, who had been working with a lot of these state legislators. And the idea was, hey, we got this Freedom Caucus really making a difference in Congress. Why can't we infuse that kind of energy and initiative into some of the states? And so the State Freedom Caucus Network was birthed, and they are being very deliberate of how many states they can get into. They want to make sure they have that kind of critical mass of enough members to make a difference, and then they'll provide staffing resources for them. But they've had a lot of success in the states where they've gone in. Sometimes working alongside the elected leadership, sometimes being a little bit of a counterweight to the swamps, because each of these states have swamps, just like DC does. So that's been something that's been fun to watch. And then you mentioned the election integrity. Cleta Mitchell is one of our fellows, but also has been working a lot with bringing together organizations. There's a lot of energy, especially after the 2020 election and leading up to that, that are intentional about, to the point you made, even when you win the election, there may still be things that could be, you get your wrench out and trying to make sure things are properly done. We want every legal vote counted, and so we want to make sure that everybody has their right to vote to be protected. And so that's what the Election Integrity Network has been all about.
Yeah, Cleta just lives a few minutes down the road from us here at our headquarters, so we're very familiar with her. And Russ is a dear friend. We were supporting the CRA, and Eric, the new one's coming down to speak to our men's club, local GOP men's club here in a couple weeks.
Eric Dietzel, he's great.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to talk about, because I don't know if a lot of people are aware on the election integrity. Of course, we want to have the right people, the legal votes counted. But one of the things at that last census was that we're not necessarily appropriating congressional seats at the state level in an appropriate manner right now. So you could even just count all the legal votes, but right now we're not even having the proper representation on a state level because of how flawed that last census was. So what can be done between now and the next census, or what is being done so that we have accurate representation in Washington?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly the census is one of the most important protectors of our democracy, and how you divide up these congressional districts ends up being something that makes a material impact on what the Congress looks like, especially in a time like today where we have such closely the Congress is so closely contested. Each of those states becomes really critical, and so. A lot of work has gone into this. The Biden administration really was able to use some sampling methods and other things to try the census should be how many people, how many citizens are there, how many people are in these districts, and then the state legislatures will draw the districts based on those numbers. But I think there's some work being done in the Trump administration that hopefully can take a look at what can be done on that census, and if there's anything that can take a backward look at how things were done, if there was any irregularities. But then, of course, forward looking, we need to make sure any future censuses are done in a proper manner. But then also, what we're seeing at the state level is these drawing these district lines in the past, the courts have pushed around the states and forced them to have Democrat districts and things like that using civil rights arguments. That's been corrected, and so now states are able to draw those lines in a way that is more fair and more not weighted to try and just create all Democrat states. So.
Yeah, no, North Carolina, we just redistrict here just a couple of days ago, and the Democrats are calling foul. But we've just pulled up the maps that they drew last when Roy Cooper, who's running for Senate, was there, and they had like this one district that was just like a snake across it, and the new ones are all pretty much just boxes and congruent, and they look like what a district would mean. So it's kind of crazy. I know Maryland and some other ones have that same sort of thing, but I think it's hard you need to count every legal vote, but we also need to make sure that, states like California and New York don't have extra congressional seats because of the algorithms they use to make it look like they were, more populated than they actually were compared to states like North Carolina that should have one more anyways.
Yeah, what we're seeing in a lot of these states in the South and so forth is that people are moving from some of these high tax, high regulation, more tyrannical states like California and New York, and they're choosing to move to places like Florida and Texas and South Carolina, Tennessee, and states that have a much more a freedom-loving environment, pro-business, good jobs, and things like that. And so that is going to, over time, that has been having a consistent impact. Every time there's a census, you have adjustments where New York and California will lose votes and lose congressmen, and those other states will gain.
Yeah. Well, local elections definitely matter. So,
amen.
And state elections. So one of the things y'all are doing, and I think our people would be interested, I've started to learn more about the legislative process, and people don't necessarily win elections and know what they're getting into. And so you guys have started the Conservative Partnership Academy. It's a 10-month training program for congressional staff and future appointees. These are the people that I guess are going to be kind of helping the congressional members understand what's going on in DC. Historically, sometimes you get these congressional staff, they might have been there for a long time and don't necessarily even agree with the congressman or with the district that they're supposed to be representing. They have a different point of view. So what are you guys doing to help make sure that our good congressmen are supported by good people?
Yeah, so that is, and you talked a little about this at the beginning too, is that you have these congressmen, and we all work so hard to try and get these enthusiastic members to come in, and they all have this great idealism of what they want to do for the country, and you have just great hope that's going to happen. And what happens? They get to the swamp, the DC machine gets their mitts into them, and over time they sort of deteriorate and become just sort of these swamp creatures. And so what we want to do is protect them against that. We want to help them, that when they first come in, they have all that enthusiasm and idealism, but they don't have the knowledge and the skills and the staff resources and to be able to and the power to be able to make the changes they want to make. And so by the time they get those that knowledge and those resources, they've sort of lost that idealism. And so we want to protect on both ends. We want to help them get up to speed, get them staffed properly, get them people who are going to help them do what they said on their campaign trail, as so that they can get up to speed as soon as possible and start really making a difference. But then over time, the way you protect these members from becoming swamp creatures is to surround them with the right people. That's what the Freedom Caucus has done. They meet constantly. That's what having a good staff does, right? If you have a good staff who believe in the same things you believe and who understand and appreciate that this is your vision, you're the congressman, that you want to make a difference for the country and for people's lives, that's ultimately what you want. And having those staff that have the abilities and the skills to make that happen. And so that's a big part of what our academy does. We have some more tactical training programs and legislative strategy, procedures, policy questions. We don't take policy positions, but usually we'll work closely with other nonprofits that have and think tanks and so forth that help us with those resources. But then secondly, we have our fellowships. You mentioned the academy. We do some more deep dive fellowships where we'll take these people who are really exceptional performers in their fields, whether it's communications, policy, congressional leadership, that kind of thing. And we'll give them more intensive training and boot camps and so forth to where they're ready to take that next step in their career.
Good, because we need good people up there to help drain that swamp. And of course, like you said earlier, there's 50 state swamps as well that we've got to be fighting for. While we're on this topic, we're recording on October 23rd for listeners. So this is going out in a couple weeks. We're in the middle of a government shutdown. Of course, we know most of it's not shut down. What is actually going on in DC from like your perspective? Like, we know that we saw a Democrat came out yesterday and basically said that we know people are suffering, but this is our only leverage point. But my understanding is this is, at least if you listen to like Thomas Massie or Rand Paul, this is the exact same budget the Democrats passed in 2024. So, yeah, what do you see that's really going on there? And do you expect, some people expect that now that the No Kings protest has passed, that they'll vote to open it, but they, at least yesterday, they failed to open it again for the 12th time. So what's really going on?
Yeah, and Senator Paul and Congressman Massey aren't wrong. That what Congress is trying to do is simply to extend the Biden budget levels, but adding a little bit of sort of clarity to that. First of all, as we know, the government spending levels go up every year. That's what they call the baseline, right? Every year they have these increases in the baseline. So to continue spending at current levels is actually, you could argue is a cut in spending, even if it's going up because revenues are increasing and so forth. But the real thing is that what we've also seen is that even though the overall spending levels might be continuing at the Biden levels under this continuing resolution, Russ Vought and his team at the Office of Management and Budget has been doing rescissions and impoundments and basically, even like regardless of what the spending level is, he can still go in and say, you know what, we're not going to spend this money, this wasteful money on the USAID or some of these wasteful programs, public broadcasting and so forth. So either through congressional rescissions or through executive impoundments can actually spend less than that budget came out. So, but the hope is nobody wants a government shutdown. Congress has been, usually passes these continuing resolutions as a routine matter. But the Democrats, have been, bankrolled by George Soros and so forth. They got these protests out there, and they're trying to stir up some dust and get some more expansive Obamacare programs added to the bill. I don't think that's going to happen, but but we'll probably know by the time this comes out that there probably will be some kind of a deal. There's always negotiations going on, and even if there's posturing publicly, there's always some discussions. And so I think that President Trump has made some very reasonable positions that he wants, but right now, the Democrats don't seem to be in a reasonable mood.
Hey everyone, interrupting today's episode to tell you about an exciting new accredited graduate certificate for classical conversations parents in the classical studies. So this 12-hour credit course through SCU is just launching. You can dive deeper into the trivium with a PhD guided discussion of core texts of classical Christian education. This is perfect for the homeschooling parent wanting an academic credential and a pathway to our full master's degree. Small cohorts make sure that you get a dedicated SEU professor and personalized attention. And of course, we always acknowledge the prior classical education work that you have been doing. So go to the show notes today and secure your spot for this new 12-hour credit graduate certificate in classical studies. Now, let's get back to the show. Well, yeah, we might solve this shutdown, but I know if they pass the current one, I think there's another deadline, November 21st. So we'll see if they actually ever pass 10 bills to fund the 10 parts of government ever again. So I know you and I are both looking forward to that day. One of the things, we saw, the first time, like you mentioned, there was no MAGA bench. I mean, we woke up that morning and there was a 2% chance that Trump was going to win. The Democrat appointees were already trying to figure out which rooms they were getting and what curtains they were buying, and those type of things. But now, as we mentioned, like you guys have created kind of this prospective political appointee training, what's called the Project 25's Presidential Administration Academy. So I assume this is part of that effort of making sure that the MAGA appointees are able to accomplish and know what their rules are. So what is that doing for us?
Right. I mean, when you have a new administration, right, whether it's President Trump taking over in 2016 or President Trump taking over in 2024, the federal government has, let's say, 3 million federal employees, right? Those are mostly career bureaucrats and people who serve and they've been serving in the military, or they're serving in the Veterans Affairs Department or DHS and so forth. These are what they call the careers. On top of that is about 6,000 what they call political appointees. Those are people who, when Biden is president, all the Republicans get pushed out, and then Trump takes over. All the Biden people leave, and you got to fill those positions. That's a lot of people, right? And so many of those people will be filled from Capitol Hill. These are legislative staff or people who are policy experts that will come into the administration from Capitol Hill jobs. Then you have to backfill those positions on Capitol Hill. So it is a real resource challenge when you have a new Republican administration, especially if you have Congress in the same party, because now you have all these committee staff, all these administration staff that have to be filled. And so it's an ongoing challenge. It's not even just that sort of transition period. It's constant. And Sergio Gore was the head of the personnel department during this term. And John McEntee was the head of it during President Trump's previous administration. But Sergio is now going to be the ambassador to India, and Dan Scavino, one of Trump's close advisors, is taking over that. So I think there's a real opportunity. It has been, and they've been getting some real wonderful stars in these positions in the second term. These are people who were kind of rising stars during the 45 administration, but now are really ready to hit the gas in this 47 presidency. And so we've seen a lot of opportunity, a lot of great placements and picks, but we're hoping to even get more.
Can you explain what Elon Musk's position was? Because it's like he could only work for 130 days. What is that at in the DC? And is that like one of those 6,000 spots, or what is that?
They call those SGE, special government employees, and so those are people who provide some special wisdom and insights, but they may have other jobs. They're kind of not really full-time federal employees. They kind of come and go, and they're part-time advisors. And so Elon served in that role, and he brought in a lot of real creativity and energy from that Silicon Valley. A lot of AI experts and people who could kind of go in and look at do a deep dive into some of these federal spending programs and identify areas of waste. And so they really brought a fresh energy that hadn't really been seen before in government. Elon's not still there, but Russ Vogt's team has been at the Office of Management and Budget, has been continuing that work to really identify programs that are not serving, making people's lives better. These are programs that are just wasting taxpayers' money and, in fact, sometimes harming the country. And so identifying those programs and being forward-leaning and making those cuts. That's one of the things that really Elon brought, was just a very confident and enthusiastic energy toward recreating some of these programs in a way that better serves the public.
Yeah, I tell people I didn't vote for President Trump. I voted for Russ Vogt, but I had to vote for Trump to get him in there. So
Amen.
He's been wonderful. So you won the 2011 Weirich Award for Capitol Hill Staffer of the Year. We've kind of been talking about how important it is to have good staff members because they're influencing congressional staff. But I don't think maybe America understands that a lot of DC is probably run by 22 and 23-year-olds.
Yeah.
So what is the congressional staff actually doing on a day-to-day basis, and why are they so important? What's actually getting done in DC?
Right. When you think of a congressman's day-to-day life or a senator, oftentimes they come into town on Monday afternoon. They got a bunch of votes. They're running around going to this or that committee. They all have way too many committees that they're on, and they got to ask a 5-minute question at a hearing. Then they go to bounce over to another thing. They're taking a picture on the Capitol steps with some constituents. Then they got to go and make some fundraising calls. They just have no time. Right. And then Thursday afternoon, they're flying back to their district to go and do some campaign events or meet with some constituents, go to a Rotary Club and speak to some senior centers, things like that. So the congressman doesn't really have any time to study the bills and do the things that we would all kind of want them to be doing. It's just not, and the bills are getting bigger and more complex. They're almost impossible to read. So they naturally have to rely on their staff to tell them how to vote, to tell them what amendments they're offering, to tell them what bills are coming up, where they need to be going. They're going to a committee hearing. Okay, what questions should I be asking? And so all of that work naturally falls into the laps of congressional staffers. And many, to the point you made, many of these staffers are in their low to mid 20s. These are right out of college. The Capitol Hill has a pretty good system of getting people through the progression. So you come in as a staff assistant. It's like a video game where each level teaches you the skills you need to pass the next level, right? So you come as a staff assistant. You're answering the phones. You're giving Capitol tours. That teaches you how to deal with constituents and answer questions. Think on your feet. How to the Capitol tours helps you learn public speaking, right? So now you're a legislative correspondent where you're answering constituent mail. And over the 6 months as an LC, they call them, your writing skills will improve more than they did your entire college career. You're constantly writing. You have to answer questions. You have to write in somebody else's voice. So they going through these positions and they really, it can be a very rewarding career. A lot of people get frustrated, but when you're on Capitol Hill, oftentimes you're surrounded by people who are like-minded. The other side is there, but you get to sort of meet some really great people. And so we want to make sure that those staffers, as quickly as possible, have the resources and the knowledge they need to be able to serve their members. And so that's why a lot of our programs are geared at training them, making sure that there is opportunity for them to build relationships with people around them, because at the end of the day, Congress is a very social institution. It's all about relationships. And then finally, to help them get their career to the next step. So let's say they're a legislative correspondent. They want to be a legislative assistant, right? They want to be somebody who's actually reading the bills and writing the amendments and telling the congressman, giving them advice on how to vote. And so we'll help identify them. Hey, there's an opening in this congressman's office. We think you'd be a good fit, and then trying to help get them placed in those kind of positions.
Hey everyone, interrupting today's episode to talk about my new book, Woke and Weaponized, co-authored with Alex Newman, a Classical Conversations dad, how Karl Marx won the battle for American education and how we can win it back. From Karl Marx's 1848 call for free education in public schools to today's UNESCO-driven global agendas, the government school system has been a slow-motion revolution, shaping generations to serve the state, not God or liberty. And it didn't happen overnight. The ideas of Owen, Mann, Dewey, and the Frankfurt School infiltrated classrooms over decades, replacing classical learning with indoctrination, dependency, and cultural Marxism. We want to show you how to rescue your family from this broken system. And lots of research has gone into this book. It's one that you're going to want to pick up and get for a friend. It's coming out in January of 2026. We're working on a pre-order date, so keep your eyes open for Woke and Weaponized, how Karl Marx won the battle for American education and how we can win it back. coming to an inbox near you soon. God bless, and let's get back to the show. So, since we we have a lot of young people who might be interested in maybe taking that path, like what are some things that maybe a high school student should be doing, or things that they should be doing in college if they want to see if that's the maybe the life for them?
Right. I would strongly encourage any of your listeners who have some idealism, have some real spunk and enthusiasm for helping our country. This is something that you don't have to. It doesn't have to be your whole career. It can be for me. It's been my whole career. But you can come to DC and make a difference, and then go somewhere else and do something else. It's a nice item to have on your resume. Working on Capitol Hill. They don't have to be a poli-sci major, or they don't have to be a lawyer, but that's something that they can do. If you're in high school, I think the most important thing is if you're in high school or even in college, be active, right? You can help out on a campaign, be paying attention to the news and basically find some congressmen that you really like and follow their social media, things like that. But then ultimately, once you're especially in college, being involved in groups like Turning Point USA and whether it's a Republican Club or other Students for Life, there's a lot of organizations, especially on a larger campus, where you can really start to fine tune your skills, build relationships, and kind of get involved in student government. Student government really, for me, helped me to all the skills I learned in student government just translated right to Congress. It's basically the same thing, even though you're dealing with much bigger budgets and so forth. So that's what I would encourage. And then the main thing is when you're in college, doing internships. Come to DC during your summer, or even a semester break, or even do a full semester where you come to DC and you work in a congressional office. You're doing a lot of administrative tasks and things but you're surrounded by that whole world, and you're going to get to learn what it's like. Is this something you'd like to maybe pursue for some or all of your career? And it's just one of these things where to me, I'm just amazed that I get to do this, right? And that I can even get paid to do it. Like, why do they pay me to do this? It's so fun. But that's kind of how Congress is in DC, especially for young people coming right out of college. It's a very young environment. As to your point, there's a lot of 25-year-olds or whatever who kind of are running the country. But so when you're right out of college, you get to be surrounded, especially on Capitol Hill, less so in the administration, but where you're surrounded by people who are kind of the same age, really sort of excited about the country. And I think it can be a real rewarding step to take at that early part of your career.
This will probably be the last question, or we're going to be wrapping up soon. But, you've been in conservative politics now for about 25 years. So, I guess you've probably seen the Bush years and now the Trump years, and maybe helping a little bit with McCain and Romney and all those people. So what have you seen change over that time? What is the direction of the conservative movement? Maybe, the next 4 to 12 years, maybe we'll get 8 years of JD Vance after Trump, if God has mercy on our country. And what are some of those things that have remained the same?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of constant sort of changes, and this is what we're trying to be a part of, which is you have building of institutions, right? The conservative movement is very dynamic, and so you're starting to see new players on the field, new people who are contributing in different ways, and that's always something that you want to see a constant addition to the resources in the movement. Obviously, the landscape, the sort of political and ideological landscape has shifted a little bit. Trump has really sort of made a strong appeal to those kind of working class Americans. One of the biggest identifiers of a Republican voter now is whether you're a college educated, right? The non-college educated voter has gone hardcore for Donald Trump. He's identified with those sort of that the working people of this country, and so I think that's been a big part of the movement. But I think that to me, that the thing that we're most passionate about is continuing to see gaps where there's some resources or organizations, and whether it's nonprofits or political activity or strategies and things like that, where we can be additive and moving the ball in the right direction. And that's something that is just happening really over the last 4 to 8 years, has been happening exponentially. And so we're really excited to see that happening.
Good. Well, anything else you want to share with our audience today before we wrap up?
No, just wanted to express my gratitude for what you guys are doing, and for all the listeners who are interested in maybe pursuing a career or learning a little more about any of this stuff. You can come to our website, cpi.org, and there's some you can apply for to see about internships or jobs on the Hill, things like that. So we'd be happy to be a resource for anybody who's interested in that. Yeah,
definitely. If you're interested in politics, go to cpi.org. If in a constitutional republic, if we're ruled by idiots, it's because we allowed it to happen, and so we need good, smart young people to enter into this so that they can help save our country and put us on a good path. Because most republics don't last much longer than 250 years, and there's plenty of reasons to believe that without President Trump, that we would be on our way the same way that Rome went down. So we're thankful for everything that you've done up there, Ed, over the last 25 years, and everything that CPI has been doing to try to righten the ship before it was too late. So thank you so much to the listeners today. Hopefully the government shutdown is over with and we can move on by the time this episode has been released. But yeah, keep getting involved in politics, and God bless all of you, and tune in next week to another exciting episode of Refining Rhetoric.
Thank you for listening to Refining Rhetoric with Robert Bortins. Want more? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media to continue the conversation, and visit classicalconversations.com/rhetoric to find out how you can join a local homeschool community.